What's up, guys? My name is Satya Sierra, and welcome to another episode of Hablando Shet. Today, I'm going to talk about some interesting topics. As you might know, a little bit of news came out recently this week about a little known superhero called Spider-Man. You know that dude, that friendly neighborhood guy. Some interesting news came out about his latest movie that's going to come out in Christmas, which is wow, crazy ass me, very quickly. But there's some stuff that came around that news, some interesting discussions that came with that character, those movies, that I decided, like, you know what, I need to discuss this on camera with some of my friends right here. This is a lot of stuff to talk about. And for this episode, I'm bringing, you can see him on at random, Kayode on YouTube, Mr. Kayode Kendall.
Yes, it's Kayode, actually.
Kayode, Kayode.
It's my fault because I didn't let you know that because I knew it would be an issue, as it is for everybody. It's an unconventional name that not everyone might be familiar with. But yes, I do
Kayode's
go by...
sounded cool.
Yeah, but yes, I am here. I am here in part thanks to my sponsor, Waterloo, when people won't stop giving you shit about liking LaCroix.
You can see the charming side of him on his show at random with Kayode. I got it. Kayode. And I'm also bringing big detractor known on social media, Mr. Alan Birdman. Chiekezzein, right? That's your last name, Chiekezzein?
Nope, Chiekezzein, but hey, I don't
Chiekezzein,
know.
god damn!
Don't worry, dude, nobody gets it. It's fine. Nobody ever gets that shit.
How are you doing today, Alan?
I am doing good. I heard that Spider-Man was around, and as current hater of Spider-Man in the MCU, I decided I got the call in. He sent out the bird signal, and now I'm here.
Dude, I had to talk about it because the way this came around was with me and Kayode, because talking about Spider-Man, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about with this. But first of all, I want to know, like, what do you guys think about this title of Spider-Man No Way Home? Do you guys like it, dislike it? What do you think about it?
It's the Home trilogy. Like, the first one was kind of catchy with like Homecoming because hey, Spider-Man's coming to the MCU. Everyone was excited. Second one, Far From Home, because like, well, okay, we're putting him in Europe, we're putting him in everywhere, Italy, all these places Spider-Man never's gone to, so that makes sense. So I guess in Marvel, they're like, well, let's just end it off with another No Way Home instead of as a way to kind of end off this trilogy.
Because I think it's weird. I mean, I think it would be weird if the third movie doesn't have the Home title. It'll be like two of them.
At this point, to be
title.
Like, yeah, you were going for something. Why would you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's so to the point that someone on Twitter actually brought up the fact that they had jokingly predicted the title 5 months ago.
That's crazy. Like, they should pay this person immediately. At least a credit in the movie. Something.
No, that kind of happens all the fucking time. Because people were making jokes the whole time. Homeless was like the running joke. Because by the time the second one came out, like the whole bullshit between is Spider-Man even going to be in the MCU anymore happened. So all those jokes came out. And yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's something that was pretty much predictable at this point, and I wrestle with that just because, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it is sort of something minute that may not even be worth bringing up as a point of contention. And again, at the same time, it's still just sort of playing into the fan speculation, headcanon, all of that bullshit. And sometimes it's fine when you do that, but when you kind of over rely on that, you start to get a little stagnant, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Home theme, like you said, Alan, it made sense with the first time around. It kind of does make sense the second time around, but I guess they made it just to make it a way to connect with the first title. Like, Homecoming. I mean, it was kind of interesting. Let's find a way to connect it with this movie. And it makes sense. And I guess it makes sense here with the story about him. I mean, I'll just say it right now. Is this fugitive plotline? Is it going anywhere? I don't think so. I think it'll be resolved in 2 minutes and we're done.
If you're telling me they're doing the fugitive, I will, like, at one point, I did not do that. And then for some fucking reason, Tommy Lee Jones goes, I don't care. Like, Tommy Lee Jones is in this movie?
Well, Well, it's kind of interesting because I was actually talking about this on another podcast, the Blurredverse podcast last week, where with Far From Home, they kind of gave themselves a good inroad to maybe not absolutely directly adapt this storyline from the comics, but to at least take this, basic structure of it to do their own interpretation of that storyline. And I was always someone who was like, from the time I saw Far From Home, I was like, now would be a good time to do Identity Crisis.
Identity Crisis. I'm not familiar with that one.
Basically, there was an issue with Spider-Man, like as a character, where he had to basically create 4 other superhero identities because him as Spider-Man was kind of burnt.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because, he actually, I can't remember if he got tech from Tony Stark or Reed Richards, but there was one that was, tech-based, another one that was sort of mysterious, and it was called Dusk. There was Dusk, Ricochet, I can't remember the other 2, but It was still sort of an interesting idea. That actually spun off into a short-lived title called Slingers, where 4 other people took on those identities after Peter was able to become Spider-Man again.
It's an interesting idea because I actually don't think that the end of, for people that haven't watched Far From Home, go watch it. This is, I guess, a spoiler warning.
It's been a year and a half.
Hey,
go ahead. Look, I don't think somebody came going, "Hey man, what the fuck?" Point is,
we're gonna go full spoilers for this movie. So
yeah. So the end of basically after credit teaser of Spider-Man Far From Home is that Mysterio reveals the identity of Peter Parker. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and Peter Parker, goes, "What the fuck?" Home Alone style. Literally, it's just called Home Alone. And so the idea for the next one is that, hey, people are gonna know this kid is Spider-Man. To which I go, "What? That's not a problem. There's at least 6 different ways in this universe that we could just solve this problem immediately. 1, I'm a stupid kid. I could easily prove I'm not Spider-Man. The Skrulls exist. We could easily just have something else happen where it's going on there.
Which is funny because that was the other after credit scene in that movie.
Yeah. Mysterio's a criminal. By the way, Mysterio's a criminal. Who's going to believe him? Hey, this random guy who might be a terrorist suddenly tells this one random kid. It's like, there are so many different ways that we could easily talk our way out of this, that the idea of doing a whole movie that people might think he's Spider-Man makes no sense to me. Like, who's going to believe he's Spider-Man?
To say nothing of the fact that from the very beginning, they pretty much made it clear that no one in the Marvel universe really has a secret identity, which is kind of a disconnect when you think about the fact that the Fantastic Four was always that public hero team where you knew what happened to them, you knew who they were, and it was cool. And then everyone else in the Marvel universe could still have the benefit of having a secret identity. And they just kind of did away with that from the time you come out with Iron Man.
I disagree with that because I don't think anyone in the MCU, outside of Daredevil, nobody, and maybe Spider-Woman, nobody really has, everyone knows who the Hulk is. Everyone knows who Captain America is. Everyone knows who Iron Man is. You brought up Fantastic Four.
Yes, now, but I mean,
in the comics,
in the comics,
but I mean, it was years, decades before Tony Stark actively revealed himself as Iron Man, and then when you come out with the first film, that ending just sort of blew that away right off the bat.
Oh yeah, it's like whatever. We're not gonna even tackle this secret identity thing
because it's a difficult thing to do because it's we want to have these heroes be essentially we want them to save the city and stuff like that, but we also have these situations where it's especially in the first Avengers, when that alien rips off Captain America's mask, they're like, it's Chris Evans. The actor requested that because they're we can't have these people in masks the whole time. No one's gonna pull a Carl Urban and stay in mask the whole fucking time. So let's just do away with secret identities. But it also worked with a lot of these characters. Of course, everyone knows who Captain America is. He's an American hero. The Hulk, it's good fucking luck to hiding that shit. Good fucking luck. It was really Peter Parker was really the only one.
The only one. I mean, for a while, because it seems like everyone in that cast know who Spider-Man is. Everybody, even the teacher might know at some point. Everybody knows.
I mean, because that was the other thing. Because Michelle, because I refuse to call her MJ,
Aw.
got that, was able to figure that out right off the bat. And
That was some
furthermore,
bullshit. That's one of my biggest problems with Far From Home. Is Far From Home, there's a sequel in between Homecoming and Far From Home that establishes that, Peter even likes Mary Jane. She always seemed like that weird deadpan friend that you chill around with that was like, okay, whatever.
Which would have been fine. And it would have been great if you just had her as that original character. But because, and this is something that I'm always kind of bringing up as far as race bending in comic book movies, a lot of people like to cling to that as, points for representation. And I had my time when I was really behind it and really liked whenever I saw it. And then as I got older, I thought to myself, this is just kind of a concession that y'all are doing, and you're not really doing much with it outside of a few exceptions. So that kind of put me on the path where anytime people are like, oh my God, this white character from this comic is now going to be black, it's great. I'm like, I guess, but at the same time, like, the way fandom kind of pushes for it kind of gets on my nerves. Even though now I have a few instances where I'm thinking to myself, might be interesting to see this actor, even though they're not white like the character was, play a certain character. So I try to kind of like have balance about it and at least think really hard about whether or not it works for a particular character.
Which I think it worked fine, but I liked it better when she's this deadpan Daria type person. And it worked well with that dynamic because you have a situation where this character who has the whole "I don't give a shit about the world." It makes sense. You're in high school. You either care too much or care too little. There's no real balance. But then they just switch her. Her character becomes completely different in the fucking sequel, where it's like it's like you've always liked him. Like you barely like looked at him, and suddenly like she's the love of my life.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't mind that she always liked him. That's a decent enough hook. The problem comes in the fact that at the end of Homecoming, you kind of establish it as something that is only personal to her.
Yeah.
It's not something that Peter's even picking up on. So to come into the second film and have him already sort of crushing on her and like thinking, talking to his friend who they stole from Miles Morales.
Look, the CW and Batman is the problem with this. Every superhero needs some dude in a chair. Every single fucking one. Literally, name me one superhero in the last 5 years that doesn't have some dude in a chair. Like helping them out.
Yeah, but it's sort of like the issue where I feel like Spider-Man's importance is only measured by how he connects to everything else in the Marvel Universe as far as this iteration of the character. And they're not doing enough, in my opinion, to make him his own character.
Agreed.
Because you have the whole end of Homecoming where, he's suiting up in the Spider-Man suit and Aunt May walks in on him. They're only casting Marissa Tomei so they can make hot Aunt May jokes.
I was gonna comment on that. Yeah.
Am I the only one that's always extremely uncomfortable with that? Because there's a running plot line in the first one that everyone wants to fuck her. Like that made me extremely uncomfortable.
Right down to a random waiter at a Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
What is going on there? Like
even Tony Stark. Like, isn't Tony
Stark will hit on anything that has
that's true.
That's fine. I get him.
True.
But like the fucking sandwich dude that's speaking Spanish, again, the random waiter, everyone like happy, interested. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's disturbing. It's a little bit uncomfortable. But there's a lot of stuff I want to tackle on those things. But I wanted to ask, well, first of all, do you guys think is Tom Holland doing a good job? Or do you guys like him, not like him?
I'm gonna say something controversial but familiar. He is a great Peter Parker. He's a terrible Spider-Man.
I mean, I don't think he's a terrible Spider-Man, but I think the big problem is, at least from a fan level, is you have the idea of like Peter Parker Spider-Man, and especially like when he started, the big thing was that he tried really hard as Spider-Man to make it seem like he was an adult. Like that was a big deal. So you kind of lose a little bit of that because he's so overtly adolescent as Spider-Man.
Yes, that's
I
very
I
true.
don't think that necessarily is the problem, because the reason I say he's a great Peter Parker, terrible Spider-Man, is because when you think of Spider-Man, you think Spider-Man and Peter Parker, you think of the struggle of, am I going to be a hero or am I going to be a normal person? And I like the fact that they went a little bit younger, because this kid has to decide, am I going to have a childhood or not? Am I going to go down and worry about girls and my grades and stuff like that and go to be a scientist or whatever, or am I going to be an Avenger? Because if he chose to be Avenger, he could die tomorrow, and it wouldn't be his fault. Think of Infinity War. He did everything right, everything perfect, and still died. It had nothing to do with him. Somebody else fucked up and caused his death. Anytime he puts that suit on, he can go. So he has to consistently struggle with that. My problem with saying he's a bad Spider-Man is, if you take the suit away, he has nothing to him. Nothing at all. They basically just ignore the Spidey sense. The whole web cartridges was something he made, which is fine because it's the origin of the comics. But like his so inconsistency with what he can actually do, it's like, if I just put the suit on tomorrow, can I be Spider-Man?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, especially considering that they actually tackle that with the spider sense in Far From Home, which I did legitimately like. But I think it's just more to the point that anytime you're trying to have a resolution for the character at the end of one of his films, it's kind of immediately undercut by his next appearance, because the whole thing with Spider-Man Homecoming was, by the end of the film, he realizes, yes, I wanted to be an Avenger and it was kind of cool, but maybe I should just stick to the streets for right now. So you kind of destroy that ending by having the next film he appears in be Avengers Infinity War, where he's now putting himself in the middle of an interstellar conflict.
I get what you mean, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem with what's going on, because it's like, yes, he wants to stick to the streets, but it's basically, again, Avengers movies are very similar to the crossover comics. They have the big event comics, so that makes a lot of sense. It's like, hey, this guy has to help out. And
but my point is, like, if you're going to have this big resolution for his first solo film, knowing that the next film he's going to appear in and is Avengers and Infinity War and Endgame, like, those are going to be two films before we get back to him in a solo film. That's bad planning, and it's bad storytelling.
I don't see, the thing is, because I don't think they had the idea that Spider-Man was going to be in on this MC. It's like it was like a last minute thing, like, oh shit, we're gonna have Spider-Man with us.
Oh, it definitely was. That's why they threw him in Infinity War.
Yeah, that's why they tried to cram in. So I can't. Exactly. So I can't fault them entirely for that, because like, okay, shit, we need to find a way.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still a thing where a lot of the stuff that you're trying to do in his solo films, unfortunately, doesn't end up resonating, because you're ending the first film with Aunt May walking in on him as Spider-Man and being like, "What the fuck is going on?"
We never got a resolution to that, by the way.
Exactly.
Oh, no, that's
the problem. Like, these are things that should have been legitimately tackled and explored within a film, in addition to the beginnings of him starting to have feelings for Michelle, because you can't just have that. Like, he's like, as far as like the first film, where every reaction to Michelle is just, why are you busting my balls, woman?
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time you see them together, he's fawning over her and trying to figure out how to express his feelings for her. And you need to actually address those within a film, at least start to plant the seeds for them before just kind of jumping into it. But again, you had this opportunity where you said, oh, okay, it'd be cool if we have this character Michelle, and then at the end she's like, my friends call me MJ, and do the like shitty fan service thing.
Yeah.
At the expense of just letting things be organic and letting her be her own original character. Right. And it's unfortunate that, speaking for myself as a not even African American because I was born in Canada, but as a Black person, I don't really understand where that comes from. And I think, if anything, you're already kind of aging down some of Spider-Man's characters from the comics to include them in this high school setting. You had a character named Gloria Grant from the comics that Peter actually dated briefly. That could have been who Zendaya was playing if you really wanted to do that, and then utilize that character of color from the comics instead of saying, all right, we're gonna make her, some reference to this other white character.
Yeah, I think it was just more for like the progressive part, like,
recognizability.
hey, like recognizability, but we're progressive, like, oh, she's not the white person anymore, she's Black and all that. So, I mean, okay, whatever. But
which again, it's Spider-Man. There's so many different interpretations. This is the third reboot in 10 years. Like my issue, like, isn't that what they did? It's just the fact that they never really did it. Like, they could have done something new and original with MJ because there's so many different interpretations. Hell, this fucking the next year or a year later, the fucking PS4 Spider-Man came out, did a completely different interpretation. So it's like you can get away with that with Spider-Man. But yeah, one of the biggest problems where it's like I'm not really as excited for No Way Home because I've never, outside of Civil War, where he was literally a child soldier, I've never really liked the MCU. I've never liked the MCU Spider-Man because I've never felt that. He's never had an identity of his own. He's too connected to Tony Stark, and a lot of stuff that they try to take from his universe doesn't ever really feel organic. It never feels like he earns anything. He's a great Peter Parker. He's a wonderful actor, but I've never felt like he earns any of this stuff that he gets. It always feels like it's thrust upon him, and he is not ready for that.
Yeah, because the whole idea of the first movie was, can I be Spider-Man without whatever sweet suit that Tony Stark is giving me? And then the next film is like, no, fuck that. Here you have like, easy bake.
But this time I made it myself with Daddy's money. Like, I love I brought the PS4 Spider-Man for a specific reason. That is my favorite interpretation of Spider-Man because it shows a legacy character. This character has been around for a while, so you could cherry pick kind of like what events happened. They reference a lot of Spider-Man too. But at the end of the day, he builds all the stuff himself. He's able to build the suit. He's able to add all his intelligence in there. And he's still struggling with that. This character struggles, but he struggles in the sense of, am I going to have a child or not? But when it comes to a suit, it's like, yeah, Daddy just left me a fabricator and I could just build whatever the fuck I want. I'm like, the suit was cool. It was better than the Iron Spider, which I'll go into detail about that. But
oh Christ,
don't get me started. Trust me, do not get me started on the Iron Spider. But like, it still doesn't feel like I like that fucking cloth suit with the ugly fucking goggles and shit because that was him. He just makeshift shit. That's Spider-Man to me, not like some dude. He's walking around in a Batman suit. I'm watching Nightwing here.
Yeah, the one issue really big issue I have with him is that he's always constantly under superhero shadow. It was Tony first, then Captain America a little bit because he did the whole pose in Far From Home. Who else? I think
I do Doctor Strange because people are
Doctor Strange. Like, he's a mentor apparently. So it's like, can he not be his own independent person? He has to be behind everybody. Like, what do I do now? Like, what should I do? Like, should I do this? Like, tell me.
Is he gonna get another mentor killed? So is this gonna turn out where, like, who's next? Bruce Banner now it's gonna be your fucking mentor.
Yeah, now that Dormammu's gonna be like, hey, I'm pissed at Stephen Strange. Like, I'm gonna kill you now, Spider-Man. Like, oh shit! It's like, god damn. I hate this whole angle. Like, he's under every Avengers shadow. Like, he's still not Spider-Man. Yeah. He's not Spider-Man yet. So like the whole identity crisis you brought up, like, I'm glad, I hope they don't do that because like he hasn't been Spider-Man yet. So for him to be someone else already, like let's see if it can be Spider-Man first and let's worry about other stuff later.
We need to see what this character is capable of, because when you look at Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, we see the classic. We see the struggling to pay rent while also trying to do the job and choosing whether or not he wants to be Spider-Man over the job. We have the Amazing Spider-Man, where it's a situation of the people around him get hurt. So is he still going to be Spider-Man because everyone around him that he cares about gets killed or hurt in some way? Those movies are terrible, don't get me wrong, but there is still some DNA of Spider-Man of the people around him get hurt, so he has to choose whether or not he wants to be his character. When it comes to the MCU Spider-Man, it's like he's just bouncing around between superpower suit to superpower suit to mentor, and it's like he's just going around for who wouldn't want to be in Spider-Man shoes?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that all like all of the Maguire and Garfield movies, it's basically the inverse of Four Weddings and a Funeral, where every movie ends with a funeral, or except one that ends with a wedding. And it doesn't even, and that's the thing, the wedding doesn't even happen.
Oh, wait, you mean the Mary Jane and Peter,
Yeah.
right?
No, Mary Jane and
yeah.
John Jameson. She was supposed to marry him.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like all of those movies feature 4 funerals and a wedding. So like even in the Maguire films, you get that whole Peter loses people because of him being Spider-Man. And I think that, yes, I understand if you want to get away from that, and if you want to make him more of a fun character, but at least in the Raimi films, and even in I would say maybe like Amazing Spider-Man to an extent, even though that was just an overstuffed film, you still have a little more balance. You still have them being able to sort of juggle some of that lightheartedness, but also realize that the big core of Spider-Man as a character is what he loses from being Spider-Man. Exactly. And even in the instances where, Homecoming, okay, the girl he liked has to move away because her father was a criminal. That doesn't really hit as hard. And I guess for some people, they really like it. And, no shade on them for doing so. But I'm just watching these films. I remember when I went and saw Homecoming, and it was me, 2 of my cousins, and like one of my cousin's sons. And all of us were like, it was all right. Meanwhile, we're hearing all of these reviews where people are like, this is the best Spider-Man movie ever. Thank God Spider-Man's with the MCU because they finally get the character. And I'm like, the other two, like, Raimi more so than Mark Webb, but like they get, the character, they got the character as well. Like that's kind of like the crazy thing about Amazing Spider-Man 2 is that I feel like that's probably
not a bad movie.
It's not a bad movie, and it's probably, I feel, in my opinion, the best at getting that balance between the struggle that Peter has being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because, I thought Andrew Garfield was an absolute douche in the first Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, that first Amazing Spider-Man movie is legitimately one of the, like, until like other Roland Emmerich movies came out, it was like one of my worst movies I've ever fucking seen. Because that entire movie is just Batman Begins as Spider-Man. Like
it's not even. I don't even want to give it that much credit.
Oh no, not in a good way, but it's a Batman movie. Like this, how bad they get that first one. The entirety of Amazing Spider-Man is mostly a place at night.
Well, I mean, yes, this is true.
True. It's a Spider-Man movie at night. Are you kidding me? It's like having it's like Christopher Nolan's that fucking Dark Knight Rises. We're doing entirely at daytime. No, the entire movie's at daytime.
And I think Andrew Garfield was a great Peter and a little bit of Spider-Man. Only the thing is that interpretation of Peter Parker. I didn't buy him as the nerd or the loser or the outcast. He looked way too cool
because he's not.
Exactly, but people, they treat him like he is like the outcast. Like people bully him. Like, are you serious? No, like, he's supposed to be cool, and at least he looks cool in all these people, all these dumbasses.
Like he's a cool millennial teenager. Like that's kind of one of the things that you kind of struggle with from interpretation to interpretation, because you do have, like, even for Tom Holland as Spider-Man, he has a whole squad of friends. Even Flash Thompson giving him shit all the time. That's still someone who's in his circle of friends. And it's like half a dozen of them. It's kind of like, Chris Rock, when Chris Rock on Bigger and Blacker back in '99 talked about the Trenchcoat Mafia after the Columbine shooting. It's crazy because his whole punchline is, they were outcasts and nobody liked them. It was 6 of them motherfuckers. And it's like, I don't have 6 friends. I didn't have 6 friends in high school. I don't have 6 friends now.
But at the end of the day, like when you look at the Homecoming, it was only really him and his buddy. I keep forgetting his name, but it's like two friends. I'm like, okay, I had at least one friend in high school, like maybe two, so I can get
Ned.
that. And then Ned. But then in Homecoming, it's like at this point, it's like, hey, he got a little cooler. He's dealt with a lot of stuff, so people like him a little bit more. But I would never say he's popular. He's just kind of people look at him as kind of a weird nerd because he's into whatever geek culture.
I was like, yeah, that's the whole thing. Is okay. They acknowledge that as far as sort of like the outcast to cool thing, as far as high school goes, it's a spectrum. It's a gradual thing of no one's absolutely like the most popular person, like the alpha or anything, and no one's a complete outcast, and it still does happen. But everyone in those films, as far as like the teenagers are concerned, are pretty much sort of straddling the middle of either end.
Yeah, which is, again, to me, I've always hated high school interpretations in most things because it's always like, hey, look at this battlefield hellscape or this prison that we just have fluorescent lighting in. Or it's like the most like, or Riverdale. It's like the other end. It's like, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this show? Or everything is a prison. And it's like,
look, I appreciate I don't watch Riverdale, but I appreciate it for carving out its own weird bug nuts fuck lane.
It's the Wire for children. Riverdale's fucking terrible.
Like every 3 to 6 months I hear about what they're doing in Riverdale, and I'm like, okay. I mean,
yeah, they're still killing people, right? I think,
dude. Oh, people die all the time. The most recent season had a 70-year time jump. So like, dumb shit happened. Like Archie went to a war, and like Betty's like an FBI agent or some shit.
What?
Dude, I can't. I bursted out laughing when I stopped at season 3 when when Sabrina the Teenage Witch got fucking put on like Netflix or whatever. That's when I just stopped watching that show.
I stopped watching season 2.
I'm like, if you ever adapt, Jughead the Hunger, where Jughead is a werewolf, I might actually watch the film.
Dude, that's gonna be an episode.
Yeah, it might happen.
It's gonna be like he took some mushrooms or some shit.
It's gonna be a dream sequence. Yeah,
dude, it's that. But like, they're done way dumber shit than a dream sequence.
But what I do appreciate about Tom Holland's Spider-Man is like he does take the teenage angle, but what I don't like about the interpretation is that he's always this nervous, super nervous, like socially awkward guy, even in Spider-Man. Like all the time he's like, hey, Mr. Stark. I'm like, shut the fuck up,
Mr. Stark.
If I hear you one more time, like,
look, he's not alternate Spider-Man from that fucking television show.
Even
no, he's not that bad.
Well, no,
that's the crazy thing too, because that was another one where I'm like, I read Ultimate Spider-Man, and yeah, they were going for him as a teenager, and they were still acknowledging that they can be dark with it. They can still hold to that core of Spider-Man's gonna lose some people.
Yeah,
Gwen's still gonna die, and then come back as a symbiote person. I don't know, but then they do the TV show, the animated series, and yeah, I know that there were obviously people that ended up gravitating towards it, but having read the comics, I'm like, oh, I don't like what you're doing here.
No, so one episode and said, I'm never watching this again.
Yeah, it's Deadpool's show.
And by the way, that's not a good thing.
No. But I also want to I want to ask you guys this question because our good friend.
I didn't like the episode when Deadpool guested on, though.
Oh, Deadpool. Oh, yeah. That was, I saw the clip. It was a good clip. I didn't think I see the whole episode.
Yeah.
But our good friend, a good shout out to Danny Doggett. He posted this thing on Facebook. I want to get your takes on this. Let me just show you guys.
What's up?
He says, people don't like the Tom Holland Spider-Man because it's been built into us that people need to suffer. Is it true? What do you guys think about that?
Let me see that real quick.
That's an extremely brilliant point, because one of the things that I remember having this argument with a buddy of mine, like almost like years ago, where it's like, why does every single superhero have to be miserable? Like, why can't everyone ever be happy anymore? And it's like a character development is apparently only brought on through misery, which I get it, because it's the whole idea of struggle is the defining characteristics. Like overcoming struggle is what people understand and will gravitate towards. Where it's like I look at something like Hunter x Hunter, where I have a buddy of mine who legitimately doesn't like Gon because he thinks he's too happy-go-lucky. But I admire that because this is a genre in which you have to be miserable to be a shonen main character. Like you can't be happy. So this character being essentially the opposite of that is incredible. But like it is an interesting point where it's like I don't think necessarily you can only be good if you suffer. But I think that it's fuck. I almost agree with him. Where I don't think that's the reason I don't like his interpretation, because I feel like he doesn't do anything on his own. But there is a certain level of like people not necessarily enjoy watching the suffering, but it's a triumph over adversity. And usually that comes across as them being miserable, but triumphing over that. Because I would never say Iron Man himself is a miserable person. Yeah. I'd say that he's had a lot of misery, like his parents fucking died, his dad he never gave a fuck about, and he got blown up a bunch of fucking times, where it's like he overcame that. He didn't necessarily suffer, but he overcame that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the interesting things that is just kind of missing from this interpretation of Spider-Man, because they kind of front load the humor and they wanted to get away from the whole.
The humor is the worst part of that.
Yes, don't get me started with that.
Yeah, because it doesn't get much worse than having this great moment between Happy and him at the end of Homecoming, where he's trying to commend him for saving that shipment of tech from
Culture.
Yeah, and you literally interrupt that moment with a toilet flushing.
I'll never get over that made me mad, but what made me more mad? The Peter tingle.
Oh yeah,
this is the most important part of this entire character. This is the most important part of the entire character. One of his defining characteristics that makes him one of the most interesting characters and has so much lore to it is the spider sense. And the fact that you almost ignore it. Like you brought it up once in Infinity War. Well, you brought it up twice in Infinity War, but just forget about it in Far From Home for most of it until you have
again, I think the point in Far From Home was that it wasn't developing in him yet. Which I think is fair, because at this point you still kind of, you're looking at it from a standpoint of the timeline as far as, okay, he's been Spider-Man for 6 months in Civil War, and then he has his moment to shine in Spider-Man Homecoming, and then immediately after that, he's thrust into Infinity War. A lot of things are happening, so I didn't mind that. Like, I think it was great how they kind of developed it as its own arc within Far From Home, where it's not being overused, because I think that's one thing that they definitely kind of overused in the Raimi films, and I don't think it's even there at all in the Andrew Garfield Mark.
No, because guess what? He gets shot.
Yeah.
Spider-Man gets shot in the leg. Oh, that fucking end sequence for Amazing Spider-Man is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in a superhero movie. So, oh my god, I gotta talk about this. So they steal a scene from Batman Beyond where he wants to save a kid in a taxi cab, but the kid's afraid of him, so he takes his mask off. Literally ripped that from Batman Beyond. And apparently that kid's mother was a fucking crane operator that knew every crane operator in New York, and because he gets shot in the leg and can't run to fucking Oscorp, he has to swing across the fucking cranes. I'm not making this up.
No, I honestly, as contrived as that was, I didn't necessarily mind it, because one of the things I've always liked when they ever do this in Spider-Man films is try to have that moment, like same with the Brooklyn Bridge scene in the first Raimi Spider-Man film, and then the second film after he rescues everyone on the subway train, because he is a New York-based character, and having those moments where, okay, people of New York recognizing Spider-Man's heroism and want to stick up for him. I always love that stuff. So I didn't mind it too much in the first Amazing Spider-Man film. I think it does kind of stick out as being a little too hokey, just because as you're watching it as a film, if you're just kind of taking yourself out of the mindset of being a comic book fan and just watching it as a film, that it does seem a little silly. But I was not against that scene.
Look, it would be way funnier if he was a cab driver in the fucking end sequence, is him in a New York cab trying to drive. First of all, it would have been New York. It would have been way funnier.
But speaking of New York, I mean, is that even a character in the Tom Holland movies?
Oh,
no.
Barely in it.
No,
barely.
The funny thing about the MCU Spider-Man movies is they understand that this character's been around for so long, so they keep putting him in situations that Spider-Man's never been in. Because what's always the biggest joke? Put him in fucking Saskatchewan, and he wouldn't be able to go anywhere because there's no fucking buildings tall enough. What are they doing there? He has to run across the street because there's no fucking buildings. The second one's like, what if he's in fucking London and shit, or what if he's in like Rome or Italy? And it's like, yeah, you have these situations where the character's in places that it put him in space, for fuck's sake. It's like, what happens if Spider-Man isn't in New York? Because New York is a part of who he is. It allows him to swing. It's like Superman in Metropolis. Like, what happens when you take the character out of the titular area and you get a chance to develop them? But it's like, I feel like a lot of times it's for comedy.
Just we haven't seen him much in his setting, you know. That's it's intricate part of Spider-Man. So it's like, I get it. I get the concept of why they're doing it, but at least give me something with.
Because I feel like the movies are like, you know how Iron Man sequels are essentially just fillers to get Iron Man to more Avengers movies? I feel like that's what happened with Spider-Man movies, where like they only exist to get him into the Avengers crossovers. Where it's like the characters themselves, like they build a little bit, but not enough. Because like, yeah, like now I think about it, it's like, yeah, they did build up the Spider Sense a lot, especially the ending of Far From Home. I felt like they just didn't do it properly because again, it was played off as a joke for 90% of the movie until the very end sequence.
But I think that's kind of what helped it, because this is like what I think was a better approach to utilizing humor within the film, because you kind of downplay the significance of it. And you do that for the benefit of the people who aren't the diehard Spider-Man fans. You know, you kind of make it seem like this funny thing that, okay, like Aunt May's throwing a banana at him to try and like test his spider tingle and all sorts of dumb shit. And you're kind of sort of building it up to that point where it turns into a vital part of his powers that he absolutely needs, especially against a villain like Mysterio. Yeah. So I think just from like, you know, a narrative and, you know, thematic purpose, I think it worked out really well in that regard. So I didn't necessarily have that same issue that you're having with it. But yeah, again, you kind of you had like the first part of Homecoming where you see him in New York, you see him at his bodega, you see him, you know, just sitting on a rooftop eating a burrito or whatever.
That was interesting. That was interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's a cool scene to have in a Spider-Man film, because you've seen scenes like that in the comics all the time where he's just got half the mask up and he's just, you know, eating food and taking a break, and it's cool, but you're only doing that as sort of, you know, anecdotes that you're putting in this film that you're going to like have take place in the suburbs or in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. And at least we do see him stop a bank robbery. At least we see him do that. At least something.
He needed to go to the top of New York and talk to a gargoyle named Bruce, which I am 100% convinced is a Batman reference the entire series.
Probably. But yeah, so it's just like more to the point of like, what are you trying to do with this character? Because I don't think you know. You realize that, oh, okay, Sony's willing to deal, you know, mostly because their plans for their Spider-Man reboot kind of blew up in their face. And now you're just like, okay, how do we insert him into the Marvel Universe in a way that will be, you know, legitimately interesting? And I don't think they're really doing it. But by this point in the MCU, you already have brand loyalty working for you. So the fans are going to accept it regardless. And that's fine if they want to, but like, let's be real about it. Like, that's my whole thing at the end of the day. Yeah, you can be happy about Spider-Man being in the MCU, but there are a lot of fans, in my opinion, that aren't honest with themselves about how he's utilized.
I think at the end of the day, it's like we're very like we've grown up with so many different variations of Spider-Man that we've seen the best and we've seen the worst within our lifetimes. And now that we're seeing something that's average, because at the end of the day, I think that's what this is. It's an average interpretation of the character, where at the end of the day, I will take average. Like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna want to watch this. I'm sure I'll get dragged to it, but I'll take an average Spider-Man versus objectively terrible, and not just Andrew Garfield. He's not the worst. I'll go with the Spider-Man XD, the most recent fucking Disney one. Is probably the worst interpretation I've ever seen of the character.
Oh yeah, that joint. Like, the few clips that I've seen of it is absolute garbage.
I don't know if you'll ever be able to find this, but you guys have to look up the fucking great power comes great responsibility as a fucking chemical formula. Oh, it's so fucking stupid because he's smart, right? He's a super scientist, right? Well, he goes to the super smart school because apparently he's such a super smart guy. He can only talk in super smart technical terms. He doesn't say brain freeze. He says, "Oh, my occipital lobe is experiencing a lower temperature." I'm not fucking kidding. And then there's a flashback to Uncle Ben, and he's like, "I have an equation that got me through school," and he starts writing some bullshit where great power, and then he's like, "The power of responsibility." I cannot kid you how bad that scene is.
I gotta look at it.
That's the worst. So it can always be worse. But then again, you also go with the best, which is like, again, either Spider-Verse or PS4. Pick your lane. They both came out the same year. So it's like, we've seen how good they can be. We've seen how bad they can be. Tom Holland, to me, it's like, it's hard. It's like, how do you top Spider-Verse? It's impossible. How do you top PS4? It's extremely difficult. I think you need to do something that nobody's ever really done with Spider-Man, which they have done, but it's like, No Way Home has to do something that we've never expected from Spider-Man. I don't know what it is, but like, you have to do something incredible where it's like, that's a character that's hard to do. It's like trying to impress us with Batman. And it's like Christopher Nolan did that by grounding him in so much reality that we had like entire city, like it just took one truck flip. We're like, this is the greatest fucking thing that's ever happened in a Batman story.
But in No Way Home, he seems to he'll be the shadow of his own film because they're shoehorning everybody.
If they are, because didn't they fucking roll back all that bullshit about all these other characters? Like,
they've lied before, but that's the other thing now, because you have so much fan speculation about what the film's going to be about, if it's going to tie into Multiverse of Madness and all sorts of stuff. And that's kind of the other thing, like on the grander scale, where I'm just at the point where I don't feel like I need to watch every piece of content that Marvel is putting out, but they're making it abundantly clear that they want you to watch every piece of content coming out because they want to reference it. And it's kind of funny because you kind of have this inverse happening now where comic fans for years would complain about big events, characters crossing over, and all of this overlap where, okay, I'm just like, collecting maybe 3 out of the 25 titles you're producing. You try to do events every 6 months is wearing on me. And now it's a situation where we have the MCU films and television shows where all people want is the big events and the overlap and everything referencing everything else.
Because I think what we're happening right now is we are experiencing the dawn, and we've already been through the golden age of comics. Because back in the day when comics started happening, what happened? Superman comes out and was like, holy shit, we got to do more of that shit. Then we started creating more and more and more, and everyone wanted to do their own thing. So it's so many different superheroes. Everyone was making their own superheroes. But what ended up happening? There's too many to keep track of, and we essentially did the crossovers, and that was the coolest thing in the fucking world. And we essentially did that. But the golden age became where there's too many superheroes, too many things to keep track of. And we couldn't keep doing these crossovers because not everybody was reading every single fucking, iteration of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, all that stuff. So what did they do? They essentially rebooted it, or we eventually went to the Silver Age where we're like, okay, you don't need to know everything about Batman, but if you know the core of Batman, we're going to tell this random Batman story that's a little bit darker, a little bit grittier. He go into details that or go into places we never took this character. We are now in that phase of the MCU. The golden age has passed. It doesn't mean it's going to crash. It just means now we're in the Silver Age where in order to keep retention, they have to either scale back or they got to take more risks. They got to do stuff with these characters that they never planned to in the original. The golden age would be from Iron Man to Endgame. Now they have to do weird shit and weird characters. Yeah.
Well, the other problem is that, on the business of filmmaking side of things, where you're just cranking out these films, where we got to a point where we were getting 2 to 3 films every year.
Yeah.
And it's tough it's tough on filmmakers because you don't really have individual visions of these filmmakers anymore, even though you have your exceptions. And it's tough because everything kind of has the same look. Every film has the same look to it now. No one gets to really do anything to kind of set themselves apart from one another. Like, you can make all the arguments you want about, oh no, this is but look at, they're doing this in a different genre. This is the spy thriller. This is a horror. This is an adventure. But they still kind of carry over similar tones and aesthetics that, you're obviously putting a massive amount of pressure on VFX studios. And then, that's its own bigger issue, because it's crazy how many VFX studios will work on major blockbuster films and then be out of work immediately afterwards. It's kind of terrible. And it's one of my fears about Blade, because that's the movie that I'm most looking forward to over whatever you've got planned for, for Far From Home.
Yeah.
Not Far From Home, No Way Home, or Multiverse of Madness, because I look back on that original film, and that's the film, that's the first film that, Marvel had as a major theatrical success. And that is a unique looking film. And even Blade 2, where they kind of flip the whole sort of color palette of everything, and the look of the film and the visuals of the film definitely set it apart. And my fear is, especially in addition to the potential to the film potentially being PG-13, is it looking too much like every other Marvel film they've done for like the past 5 years.
Yeah, that'll be an important movie to keep an eye on, because can they pull off a mature story by Disney? I
believe they can, because that was my biggest concern with Black Panther. I was afraid that this was going to be a Spider-Man. I was afraid it's going to be a Thor. Then what they did is they took what I hoped. They took a lot from Captain America, Winter Soldier. They took a more grounded. Yeah, there's still the typical comedy jokes in there, but they took a more grounded, real story, and they managed to make it an incredibly unique-looking film with some of the best world building the MCU ever had.
That's all well and good. I want blood.
That's never gonna happen. That is never gonna fucking happen. Like, I
don't care about because there are things that they can do to ground the film and make it something that's definitely going to resonate with adults more so than kids. Just off of the standpoint of the character literally kills vampires.
Yeah, they're gonna do the dust effect they do in Infinity War.
That's a big horror element that you really have to do. Yeah, so the fear is, okay, are the disintegration effects for the vampires going to be comparable to that? But also it's sort of like to the stance where one idea I had that I kind of knocked around, and I don't think it's going to happen, because I think there was an article that came out about Wesley Snipes not being involved with whatever they are doing with this new Blade film at all, is I think for all the people that wanted him to play Whistler, and again, this ties back to my whole thing about race bending characters, is I have the better idea, at least I think it's better, of if they were to include Wesley Snipes, make him Deacon Frost. And go back to the comic origins where Deacon Frost is a literal deacon. Because you have so much you could pull from the whole idea of, preachers who do sermons in inner cities at night. That's a thing that you can really build on. And that, in which case, having, Deacon Frost be black can play into that. And you have a lot more to work with as far as creating depth for that character, the whole idea, and sort of drawing on parallels of, in our community, we have preachers who are, like, I mean, in general, that not even with black preachers, but anyone who has a mega church is basically someone who is using Christianity and religion to be predatory. And you tie that in with vampires, and yeah, you'll probably have like vampire lore people who are like, that's impossible. Like there are crosses everywhere, blah blah blah. I mean, even the first Blade, they were like, yeah, crosses and running water and holy water don't do shit. No. So you can just stick with that stance. Like there have been so many vampire films where, films and television show where they don't give a fuck about a cross.
But to a point that you brought earlier,
unless it happens to be made out of silver, then it just happens to work out.
Oh yeah.
But to a point that you brought earlier, you don't think that Marvel Studios is currently experimenting, especially with WandaVision, that's changing the game a little bit.
But that's actually what I would bring up. They are experimenting because WandaVision is an experiment. I don't know who greenlit that idea. But like I was utterly convinced. I can't remember which episode it was, but it was the episode. I think after they threw Monica Rambeau out, and they essentially just when Kat Dennings gets in, and they just explain all the bullshit that's been happening 3 episodes. That's a compromise episode where it's like, hey, we're gonna let you do this weird bullshit, but in case we lose half the audience, this is the episode to make sure we didn't lose anybody. That's the compromise. But they are doing weird stuff. I'm curious what they're gonna do with Winter Soldier. But like this situation where it's like they can experiment on a smaller screen because it's like they might lose some money, but they might make some, and it's like it worked out for them well, so they're gonna keep allowing that shit. But like I think that's what's gonna happen with the movies because like Doctor Strange the first one was such an experiment. That was such I legitimately I have problems with that movie with character development and then some of the stuff that's going on, but visually that is fantastic. The shit that they did with that was like you just took a kaleidoscope and a 4K camera and went to town. I want to see what happens with the sequel because you have a chance to go even further. But I don't think they're really gonna experiment with the No Way Home. But I want to see if they're gonna do Spider-Man further on. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna do the Clone Saga, which people specified? They could do the Clone Saga, or even more horrifyingly, somebody suggested do one more day because Doctor Strange is involved.
I want a pure and simple straight-laced Spider-Man story before we do the big shit. I just want Spider-Man just taking on.
You can't do that in the MCU because every super has to save the world at some point.
That's the big issue that I see with these movies is that I don't know why they felt they have to cram in the MCU in every minute of every film. Like, hey, Tony, this. I mean, the first movie started literally with the aftermath of the Avengers. I get it. Okay, cool way to start it, but why do I have to keep bringing up the MCU? I just want Spider-Man that lives within the universe, but doesn't have to be referenced every single minute.
And it was kind of funny because a friend of mine said something that was hilarious. It's like, what better way for Peter Parker to learn that with great power comes great responsibility than for him to be handed a completely weaponized drone infrastructure?
That was a fuck. Here's a nuke. Child that barely has hit puberty. Here's a nuke.
And I feel this was completely disrespectful to the characters. I get that they don't want to do the origin, but no reference to Uncle Ben, except for a stupid handbag. At least mention him.
One of the criticisms
they don't want to.
It's he's so critical and important to his morality of who he is. Nothing.
One of the biggest criticisms with Andrew Garfield was that they never did the whole with great power comes great responsibility.
They went through so much verbal diarrhea for Martin Sheen to say something that they could have said in 5 words.
It was if someone had the right to do something and they didn't do it, it was a moral obligation. That made me so mad because I'm utterly convinced Mark Webb thought that Sam Raimi created Spider-Man. So when he had to do the remake, he just did the same movie but just changed a bunch of bullshit. It's almost an identical movie.
And then it's kind of crazy because the other thing is Peter doesn't even get to the point. I don't even know if he because it was the way they frame it is just kind of hilarious where they don't even really give him a moment to realize, oh, I fucked up. They don't.
He does fuck up a lot though.
No, but I mean, in terms of letting the person who ultimately shot Uncle Ben get away, and then the other problem is that was the way they handled that was so clunky because they have to have him trying to say with great power comes great responsibility with like a whole ass paragraph. And then the whole thing where the person who shoots Uncle Ben runs into him as he's coming out of the store, while Uncle Ben's trying to find Peter, and Uncle Ben notices the gun and decides that him, as a man in his probably late 60s or early 70s, decides that he's going to fight a man visibly younger than him over a gun.
That speaks to character. That speaks to...
Dude, but like
which makes me which frames it as Uncle Ben was a dumb motherfucker.
Well, probably. But
like in that situation, I wouldn't put that responsibility on Peter at all. Because Uncle Ben's the one who decided he wanted to wrestle a gun away from someone more than half his age.
I get that, but like they could have easily fixed that thing, because at the end of the movie he gets a cell phone call, like the last message he gets from his uncle. And I was like, okay, he's gonna say, hey, with great power comes great responsibility. And then they totally botched it. With this one, I'm not even sure he even has an Uncle Ben. Did it ever get confirmed he knows Uncle Ben in the MCU? Because in the Civil War, when he goes, if bad things happen and you can stop it and they happen, it's your fault. Like, thanks. Let's explain this to a fucking adult who created Ultron about a year and a half ago. Like,
yeah. I kind of
like the thing. That's a great scene, and that's a great dialogue. He's saying it to the wrong fucking person.
Or the right person. Tony Stark, stop working, man.
So I kind of, now that you're kind of speaking about Uncle Ben, I kind of want like a war movie or series on Disney Plus with young Uncle Ben or some shit that's just being reckless. Just being a dumbass motherfucker.
No. We're not doing this fucking retcon shit where every fucking mentor to these superheroes that get shot is some secret spy. We already have Pennyworth.
That's what I want. I want a Pennyworth with Uncle Ben.
No, because they tried that. Somebody wanted to do that with Aunt May's a secret spy or some stupid bullshit. They're just normal people. Like, that's like saying fucking Martha Wayne should be a fucking like femme fatale like assassin or some shit. Like fucking Christ.
That'd be cool.
Jonathan Kent is like a fucking was a king in some fucking like nation and got exiled.
Look, all I'm saying is
I just want Uncle Ben somewhere. I don't know.
Here's my thing. You know who you should have cast as Aunt May? Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah. Oh,
way too aggressive. She would have smacked the shit out of Holland like 100 times.
Well, that's kind of what he needs,
Well, yeah, because one, you kind of base her a little bit on the Aunt May from Ultimate Spider-Man, especially if you're already drawing so much from the Ultimate Universe anyway. So there are a lot of elements of the MCU that are lifted wholesale. I mean, fuck Nick Fury, for Christ's sake.
Well, that was a situation which he specifically said they actually based that Nick Fury off of Samuel Jackson. You like this. He said that on the basis if you ever make a movie, I'm playing him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it would have been like, and you kind of also split the difference because, like, I'm sorry, like, Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm not going to say she could still get it, but I'm like, still an attractive lady. Like, I remember when
she might be a bit too old, though, because, like, I mean, Halloween 2018, like, I mean, they aged her up a little bit, but, like they want a younger Aunt May just because, again,
but she just turned 60.
But you remember how Spider-Man rules work? Spider-Man's like a Time Lord. Every single time you reboot him, he has to get younger. Andrew Garfield was like 20-something. Then, not Andrew Garfield. Tobey Maguire was like 25, 26. Then you have a younger Andrew Garfield. Then you have a younger Tom Holland. The next iteration is a baby.
And Aunt May gets getting younger and younger. So.
Every single time gets younger and younger. The next one's going to be a supermodel. We're going to get fucking Megan Fox to be Aunt May. And who's that kid from Ender's Game? He could be Spider-Man.
Are you thinking of Asa Butterfield?
Yeah, he's the next Spider-Man. I'm calling it right now.
No, I mean, he's the same age as Tom Holland.
But he looks younger. That's the point.
Not by much, honestly.
Enough, dude. Henry Cavill and Jesse Eisenberg are the same fucking age.
They could just cast Jacob Tremblay from Room and just make a Spider-Man the next reboot. Just have Cliggers Moretz as Aunt May. It was like, wow.
That'd be terrible.
That's where they're
No.
going. Like get younger and younger and younger
Yeah,
every
oh, no,
iteration.
good.
Yeah, it's
We want good actresses.
But I hope for it's not gonna happen for next movie, but I hope they just stop with the whole John Hughes comedy movie. I'm done with the comedy shtick. It's
you've
overdone.
You
it.
have really like beat
It's
that
John
horse
Watts.
to
That's
death.
all he knows how to do.
Like I mean, I would argue that you beat it to death in the first one because you have him doing the Ferris Bueller run back home scene during Spider-Man Homecoming, and then you also don't trust your audience to realize that's what you're doing. So you have to have a scene of someone actually watching the literal scene as it's happening.
Dude, it just makes me afraid of Fantastic Four because he's going to direct that movie. Like, is John Krasinski going to look at the camera like, "Oh, this looks fucked up"?
To be fair,
First of all, if they cast John Krasinski as Reed Richards, I'm not watching that movie.
Oh, why? What?
Now,
dude, he's like the fan favorite right now.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason. Like, everyone jumped on that bandwagon from the time I saw it. I was like, really?
Look,
and I did a video, and I did a video casting. Like, first of all, I realized that it's the Fantastic Four, not the Fantastic Twos. Like, fan cast Johnny Storm and Thing and Doctor Doom. Like, for the past 5 years, all y'all have been fixated on is Emily Blunt and John Krasinski playing Sue and Reed. That's all you've cared about.
Just bring back Michael Chiklis for the thing.
Here's my cast.
Okay.
Here's my cast.
Yeah.
Reed Richards, either Timothy Olyphant or Chris Pine.
Oh, Timothy Olyphant would be great.
Timothy Olyphant, I think he's a little bit older. I think he could work it a little bit better.
Yeah, but does he play a good Reed Richards? I don't know if he can play a good.
No, he can. Yeah, I mean, he was like, I know a lot of people don't like Live Free or Die Hard, but he was great in it.
Wait, Timothy Olyphant was in that movie?
He's the villain.
Yeah, the villain.
And he's like a tech genius. And as Sue Storm, Michelle Williams.
Okay.
Ross Lynch, who played Harvey on Chilling Adventures of Sabrina as Johnny Storm. Wes Chatham as Ben Grimm from The Expanse.
Wes Chatham.
He plays Amos on The Expanse if you watch it.
I've watched it, I just don't remember the dude's name by name.
Yeah, but you know the character Amos, right?
I think so. Oh yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. He's essentially like that's my on the nose casting because Amos on The Expanse is essentially Ben Grimm.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
and then Oded Fair as Dr. Doom.
Oded Fair. I don't know that person by name.
You remember Ardith Bay from the Mummy movies?
Oh wait, what? Oh no, I don't know about that last one.
What? Are you serious?
I don't know.
Wait, who's he?
I'm
trying to look it up.
I know. I'm looking at it right now. I don't think so.
No. Please don't. If you see this man act, and if you see the stuff he has the range, he has the presence, and he has that quality that you expect from a character like Doom.
I think they're probably going to want to skew a little bit younger for almost everybody. Because Timothy Olyphant's cool, but like both those guys are up in age. You probably want to skew a little bit younger. That's why John Krasinski would be a perfect choice.
He should direct the movie, not John Watts.
You have Rainn Wilson as Dr. Doom.
Oh, God, no.
Yes, because I swear to God, I will watch that movie if they just have it, the first one, as The Office, but as a movie. Documentary crew following the Fantastic Four. You're telling me the Fantastic Four would not have a documentary crew following them around as they're doing crazy bullshit?
Follow them in space for the whole accident?
Goddamn right.
That's a cool, funny movie. I don't want to see that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We don't want to tarnish the record of the Fantastic Four movies. Yeah.
No. But
let's make it better. Let's make it better.
That's not the point though. But like, I feel like at that point you're just kind of doing things again to kind of like feed into headcanon and do something that you think is clever, as opposed to actually trying to have an earnest adaptation of the property.
I mean, that's
which I think
Yeah.
which I think can work sometimes, but I don't think it's like I don't think the Fantastic Four is the property you do that with.
I think at the end of it, it's extremely difficult because they've done at least there's 4 Fantastic Four movies that have all had their good parts and all had completely terrible parts. I'll even throw Fantastic there. I don't think Fantastic is that bad of a movie. I think there's a good version that Josh Trank wanted to do, but since Fox is like one of the worst like people when it comes to making superhero movies, they just fucking cut that shit to death and just released that piece of shit. But like you could have done something with that, and it's like seeing that actor move on. So I see that director do this. I'm worried we're just gonna get another.
But at the same time, there were people like in the cast that did not fuck with that dude. Like he got into literal fistfights with Miles Teller.
Oh, I would get 2 as well.
And then and then like I haven't seen Capone, but I've not heard anyone say anything good about it.
I have not seen it either. But it sounds like a bad movie night.
Yeah, well, was it Amazon or who the fuck did it? I can't fucking remember.
I think
I don't know.
It
may have been Apple Plus.
I feel like it was a random streaming service website. I want to say it was Movie Pass, but I think maybe that's the other one with what's his face, the other fucking mob movie.
Gotti.
Gotti. Yeah. I was like, I keep forgetting which shitty streaming service did that fucking movie.
But I'm nervous for John Watts directing Fantastic Four, and hopefully this next movie makes me a little bit optimistic about it. I don't know. I'm just not excited.
I mean, we're 2 movies in, and I'm just kind of like, I don't think you have a hold on this as much as you think you do. So going into bringing him into Fantastic Four, I don't know if that would have been the move I would have made. I feel like
is Cop Car the only experimental thing he ever did?
Well, he did Cop Car and Clown.
That was Clown, yeah.
Yeah, the Cop Car was kind of good, but not that really. It's not that good.
The biggest problem with what's happening with Spider-Man is it's always the criticism of a lot of these movies are so formulaic. The directors are just filling chairs. That's what John Watts always felt for me personally, because like I don't really see like, especially like the Spider-Man Home and Homecoming, put them side by side. I don't really see a sort of flair that the director adds to it. I see just like studio made movies. That's what I see with those 2 movies. So it's like the idea is you're gonna do a third studio made movie. It's like maybe they'll give him more free reign, but it's like I don't know anything about him to know if that's a good thing or not. Because like when you look at the Jurassic World, for instance, the first one, we're like, oh, okay, cool. This is probably directed by studio, but hey, you managed to do a lot of cool stuff. It was a bit cheesy, not as intricate as the first one, but hey, it was fun. That second one, you could tell the director didn't give a fuck about the script and just directed what it was given. And that ends up being that case. So it's like, what does he do? What does he add to this? Could anybody do what John Watts is doing? Maybe we'll see the Fantastic Four, but it's like, I hope, for the love of God, the third one, do something unique.
I think Sony is the one meddling a lot in these movies.
It's hard to tell.
We forget that Sony's in this shit, and Sony wants that universe building.
No. I'm not going to lay this on Sony's doorstep.
I don't know if to lay it on Sony.
No, because I feel like a lot of the things that I had issues with as far as Spider-Man Far From Home or the Spider-Man films in the MCU in general is things that I've seen in other MCU films. Like you see where they interject humor where it's not needed. You see where they kind of have to split their focus between having it just be a solo film and also tying back to whatever they're going to be doing in another film. That's not going to be a Sony mandate.
But these movies, I don't know. These movies, for some reason, rash that up, like the humor to like 110%, and the universe building on 120%. Like, I don't know why they go to such extremes in these movies. I don't know why it's so necessary. I guess they want like a tone shift to like make it a little bit lighter than the other past Spider-Man movies.
Well, yeah, because the other Spider-Man movies are a mix between depressing and why am I still in this theater? I'm crying because like look at Spider-Man 2. Like
4 funerals and a wedding.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But these movies go way too on the extreme of like let's make this funny the whole time. I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't laugh. I enjoy them. I enjoy these movies, but it's not a Spider-Man story for me. It's a dude in a suit.
But the problem is like Spider-Man has always had that comedic aspect to him because you see like a lot of clips of like him making jokes, especially with the Avengers. but at least in the comics and other interpretations, they never shy away from how difficult it is. And there are moments like Tom Holland gets that one moment in every movie where he's breaking down as a character. Like the first one when he's being crushed and he's like, "Holy shit, that's a fucking kid!" And the second one when after the fucking incredible sequence of my favorite part of Far From Home was that entire Mysterio sequence when he is just like he is questioning reality. Like he just like Keanu Reeves like out of the Matrix type shit. And he has no fucking idea. Like he gets that he's allowed one. Like that's contract mandated. But it's like I wish there was more of that.
Yeah, there he has some struggles for sure, but I feel like a lot of times it's sugar coated with humor. We got to cut out to Ned saying something stupid. We got to cut out to the teacher saying something dumb. I'm like,
that teacher is terrible, both as an instructor and as a character.
Yeah, I like Murder Star's character. He's kind of funny. I mean, I like the James.
No, he loses kids a lot.
Oh yeah, well yeah, he's a terrible teacher, but he's funny though. No, he's a terrible teacher.
Which they acknowledge is the same character that he was in The Incredible Hulk when he was a grad student.
Oh yeah. I saw that.
Because he's the kid Bruce Banner delivers pizzas to, and to get back into his old lab.
Oh that's true. That's true. Oh. By the way, are we gonna get because I guess we're connecting stuff to the Incredible Hulk. Are we gonna see what's his name? The dude from
fucking Abomination or
no, the other guy. You know the
leader.
The leader.
They just forgot about him.
I mean, apparently Abomination's coming back. Apparently Abomination's coming back.
Because they've even made reference. They even made reference to the Abomination in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But that's
the leader.
Yeah. But I mean, that's difficult because I think Universal is still involved as far as rights are concerned. And then they also just I loved The Incredible Hulk, but I understand that from like a business standpoint, that wasn't anywhere near the hit that Iron Man was.
Or even
and that was obviously their priority because they made those movies at the same time.
But will the Hulk movie work nowadays with this version of Bruce Banner?
Yes,
because this Bruce Banner is too jokey. This Bruce Banner is too jokey, too weird. I don't think we're gonna see that.
The thing is, they did that because they had nothing else they could do with the character. The biggest crying shame of the MCU, at least personally, is the fact that we never got to see another solo Hulk movie. Because the Hulk is my favorite MCU character. Marvel character of all time. He's number one for me. And the fact is, I know for a fact that they can do this because there's a character currently in the MCU who has to constantly struggle with a darker alter ego that at any moment can be brought out and cause the deaths of tons of people. And he is constantly terrified of that. That is the Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier is the Incredible Hulk as a different character. Because he has all that Hydra training still in there. The moment someone says a bunch of fucking words, he basically goes on this fucking murdering rampage. And it's like, we're okay with having people that are supposed to be heroes murder people because they acknowledge that in Civil War. They could have done that with the Hulk. I'm not saying they could adapt Planet Hulk as a single movie or even a trilogy, but like you could have told a Hulk story. You could tell World War Hulk as a one or two MCU, as an Avengers story, for fuck's sake. But it's because Universal controls the rights to so many of these characters that they're not able to because, it's not worth fighting. It's not like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's one of the most popular comic characters of all time. You're going to fight that fucking battle. Hulk, it's like, he has his popularity, but you're not going to fight that battle.
It's just, I hope we can get him. I hope we can get like a personal.
Just Hulk versus Wolverine live action, man. Just get Hugh Jackman. Whoever you want to play as the Hulk, play as the Hulk, but just come on.
Yeah, or just reel him back a little bit on She-Hulk. Maybe, hopefully, he's a very important secondary character.
There, though? How are they going to put that on a television show? They gave that show too much money.
Yeah, I hope she doesn't look weird. That's what I'm hoping. I hope she doesn't look weird because she's supposed to be She-Hulk the whole time.
Is she gonna be She-Hulk the whole time?
At least in most iterations, right?
I can't remember if she goes back and forth.
There, like some of the recent ones, like at least the ones I like when I actually collected She-Hulk. I think the version I went, especially when she was at a law firm where all of their like legal reference material was Marvel back issues. No, they split their time between her being Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk. Because the whole thing was that, like, that title in particular was supposed to be more of, like, a legal comedy.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like Night Court or Boston Legal or something like that. And the whole idea was that, like, whatever she needs to reference for a case is a Marvel comic back issue.
That's true. And I think they'll probably do that. They'll probably switch back and forth because,
Oh,
budget.
I wonder if they're gonna have a Marvel fucking television show that a character's a lawyer and actually has been practicing law. That'd be nice change. Look at you, Daredevil. Fucking 2 episodes of your entire 3-season run in which you are actually a lawyer.
Well, hopefully, I think She-Hulk will be more of the lawyer show.
I hope so,
Daredevil's gonna kick ass. Yeah. But one last show that I want to see, at least on Disney Plus or something. I want to see Damage Control, the show. That'd be great. I think that'll be funny. A cool little, if they do like a mockumentary style like The Office, that'd be kind of funny.
There's your Office nod.
Look,
that's
like the Hulk again.
I need a random skit that the MCU does where Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan are fighting to get to be Firestorm again, and they have to compete against each other because they're like, hey, their characters are kind of done, so let's just be Johnny Storm again.
I think, maybe they'll be in Doctor Strange 2 or Spider-Man 3. Who knows?
Maybe could you imagine if they go actually the multiverse of Madness and Doctor Strange actually just start showing the other interpretations?
I mean, they've already established that they've already established that as a possibility with the WandaVision. So obviously now everyone's hype about it. And it's kind of funny because, especially after Spider-Man Homecoming was such a hit, so many people wanted to throw Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield under the bus.
Yeah, because they wanted the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, and now that there's the potential of them like being in this new Spider-Man movie, they're all just hoping that it happens. And it's kind of, again, so like I feel like a lot of my issues with MCU is just the response of fandom.
Yeah.
Which, while I still have issues with like the content, like natively with the content, it's still seeing people's reactions to things and just looking at the fair weather nature of fandom and not always feeling particularly good about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it seems like things you like curse out one minute, you're excited for the next.
Yeah.
Or you just kind of have this idea in your head that you want to share with everyone through social media, and then they get the same idea. And it just like one of the biggest things as far as WandaVision was everyone assuming that the main villain was going to end up being Mephisto.
He still could
be. Yes, he still could be. I don't give a shit though. But like that's kind of the crazy thing, and everyone is sort of like has all of these expectations that they build up in each other's heads for things and don't want to see play out organically.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to the show that they were able to still end up being, end up surprising people.
Oh yeah. It's amazing.
But, and like, I'm not even watching the show because again, I'm at the point now with the MCU where I don't want to commit myself to every single film and television show they're putting out. Like it was, it was great in the beginning, but I also look at it from a standpoint of I was never a fan of a lot of these characters, and I don't particularly care. And even in WandaVision, I don't know if it was you who sent me the article, Sebastian, but when there was an article talking about why this one particular writer didn't really have an emotional connection to what was going on because of how they kind of framed and developed the whole relationship of Wanda and Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And they explained it in very explicit detail and made a lot of good points about the things that you would expect to be handled in the films to make you care about those characters on an emotional level as a couple aren't there. And I think that's something that plays into why I decided not to check out the show, because I'm like, I honestly don't care about their relationship.
I'll jump in on that because I actually legitimately hated Vision because he ruined my favorite scene in Age of Ultron, which was all the Avengers trying to hold up Thor's hammer because that's an important thing to the character. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie. him just picking out 2 seconds after he's born is the stupidest fucking thing in the world. So babies can just pick up fucking hammers, like fucking guess. Like, of
Well,
course,
no, but I mean, it's like, yeah, because at that stage in their lives, they're innocent.
but it is worthiness.
Yes, but it still kind of ties into this idea of him as a character not having any ego about himself, not being anyone who has been influenced by, the experience of the world like other characters have. And like for me, that didn't bother me and made a lot of sense because he's this character who, he's not like he doesn't have the same, sort of insecurities that a character like Tony Stark would have or anyone else. Like he's
I get that, but I feel like they cheapened Thor's history to rush his character's development, and they never did anything with Vision. And I never felt they did anything with Vision in the MCU. So when they do the television show and they have to do essentially a lot of groundwork for you to give a shit about these characters, that it actually legitimately pulls it off. Because again, Wanda was a character that, besides her being essentially a MacGuffin for most of this franchise, never really did anything in the MCU. It was like, oh, she could have taken out Thanos. I mean, I fucking guess. At this point, Spider-Man could have probably taken him out. Because based on how everyone's power levels are random as fuck. But the show does have a chance to really, again, I felt like this for a long, long time. Ever since Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, is that television is a much better medium for telling these stories than movies are. Where movies have to focus on the big spectacle, whereas on a smaller screen, you get to focus on the character development.
But even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the first three seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are basically just, that could have been an ABC family show called Shield Academy.
What are you talking about? No, maybe the first half season of the first one, but they started introducing Hydra, and motherfuckers are dying left and right, dude. Like,
motherfuckers die on ABC family shows. Get the fuck out of here.
What the fuck?
What show are you watching?
No, but I mean,
watching.
No,
Murder She Wrote, ABC Family tonight at 8.
No, but I mean the other thing about it is, for all their talk of like tying to the Marvel universe, they don't really do it that much. Like, obviously, they had the first season that played into what was going on with Captain America, the Winter Soldier. But beyond that, like, they kind of pretty much stayed in their own pocket. I don't think they even, like, I haven't watched the last season because by that point I just didn't care anymore. And I feel like, because I know that they do the time, like they time travel back into the past, which was probably their way of avoiding having to acknowledge anything about Infinity War or Endgame.
They sometimes talk about what's going on with the MCU, but nothing too drastic. But yeah, legitimately, I think they're like, we have to essentially avoid the fact that technically half of our cash should have been wiped out. We have to 5 years passed. Like, let's just we're in time travel, so we're fine. But it's still a fantastic show.
Yeah, I mean,
I
for as many people who like
show.
really tried to like put it up there as the best of the Marvel shows that they were doing at the time, I was like, nah. Like, it's a fun show, and obviously, Ming-Na Wen can do anything to me if she wanted to. She's more beautiful in person. I remember going to Comic-Con like 2015 and standing in line to get my picture taken with her. And it was like half an hour of me telling myself not to forget how to speak.
Yeah.
What do you think happened when
did that work out?
Yeah. What do you think happened when I finally met this woman that I've loved since Joy Luck Club?
You're like, hi, my name is Melinda May.
Yeah. And I'm just kicking myself like, fuck, I did exactly what I spent the last half hour telling myself I wasn't going to do.
Look, that's the alternate cut of 8 Mile where it just didn't work out.
But did you hold a conversation with her, at least for a minute?
Afterwards, yes.
Okay, good. At least
she's a professional actress. I'm sure she's probably like used to it.
But I want to ask you guys one last question. Just one last question before we wrap up. Like,
all right,
what do you guys want for the future of this Spider-Man? Like, what kind of stories do you want to see? What do you want the things to be improved? Tell me, guys, what do you want? Whoever wants to start.
What I want with Spider-Man would probably have to require them it's I don't know if it's going to happen with this movie because I feel like they're going to keep like I need like a time jump or something like this. Like I need him in college. I need him
Oh.
getting on the path to being a grown ass man. And even Tom Holland, he's doing movies where he's playing an adult, or at least trying to. Although that Russo brothers movie Cherry seems to be getting massacred by critics.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
But yeah, I need him to not be a teenager anymore. I know that a lot of people really love to fetishize teenage Spider-Man, but it's like that was such a small portion of the character's 60-year history at this point. Like I feel like even with the Raimi films, they said, okay, yeah, he started off in high school, but we're acknowledging the fact that that was not the most interesting period of the character right off the bat. They're like, all right, high school graduation, like at the beginning of the second act. And then even when he's in college, he's living on his own. Him and Harry are roommates. Mary Jane's got a job. And then as the movies progress, you're already having him be a freelancer for the Daily Bugle. And it seems like they're going really quickly through things with him, but Raimi as a filmmaker and storyteller is able to do that in a truncated way where you don't lose anything from it. Like as fast as he's moving to get Peter to being like an adult in New York City, you're still getting enough time and breathing room with the character to see him develop. And then over the course of the other two films, it's just happening further to the point where, oh, now he's living on his own and dealing with all of those issues. And obviously, that's where they really lead into that. Okay, Peter's always broke. Peter's always having trouble with women. Peter's always having trouble with work and balancing work and school. And then by the third film, like you don't even care if he's like still in college or not. Yeah, he's still talking with Dr. Connors, and a shame that they couldn't do anything with Dylan Baker for after the two films that he had been in. But I think that's also a good thing because it probably would have turned into the trend of the other two films, of the first two films, where, oh, okay, the villain is one of Peter's, scientific mentors.
Oh man, that's half of the fucking that's almost half of Spider-Man villain.
Which again wasn't even that bad. And again, they managed to do it in a way that it doesn't feel too contrived or clunky, because obviously with the case of Harry Osborn, it's more of a sense of Harry looking at Peter as the son that he always wanted. And then with Dr. Octavius, it's like, oh no, Peter is like, this is his idol. And also you've made Dr. Octavius a much more sympathetic villain than the Green Goblin could ever be, because that's characters totally driven by ego. And even in the case of Dr. Octavius, it's him not necessarily, it's also him being, influenced by ego, but also he's got a AI that's fucking with his brain, and he's lost his wife. So you've got the whole grief angle in there factoring in to making him a villain. And by the end of it, you have a redemptive arc for the character. So there's still differences between those two villains. But again, you couldn't have done, I don't know how it would have worked out to have another Raimi Maguire film and then introduce the Lizard and have to do what they ultimately ended up doing in the first Amazing Spider-Man film.
Yeah, that movie would have had to actually be more creative, but what can you do?
Is there any storylines that you would like to see, or?
Not necessarily, because I don't have a favorite. I don't necessarily have a favorite Spider-Man storyline, but I feel like I'm trying to think of interesting villains that they could introduce.
Yes. Like what? Who?
Mm.
I kind of want a Kraven's Last Hunt for the third movie, but that's not gonna happen.
Oh God, no!
That would have been great for like a fugitive style movie, Kraven versus Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's
the same movie.
Yeah, like that's the only thing I'm really having issue with for me personally is figuring out what villain I would want to see. Because I think there are so many good choices you can make. Some like they've even like people have talked about. It's like, well, I mean, one like the actor who plays Ned Leeds, Jacob Batalon, lost a shit ton of weight.
Yes.
Yeah, there's that. So, and if you wanted to actually follow through and make it the Hobgoblin, I don't know. Like, if you want, like, that's the other thing where you don't even have the time to build him up. Like we've seen this like before where, you know, the friend of a hero, you know, ends up becoming a villain at some point. I think, you know, famously like when Willow became evil on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But that happened over a progression of time. Like they had to plant the seeds for that over like maybe 3 seasons leading up to that, quite honestly. And for them to do that with Ned in these films, I don't think would work because I don't think no.
But they didn't. I know. I always like the friend that eventually becomes the villain just through like the bullshit that happens. But you're right. They didn't. There's him right now without almost no character development wouldn't work. But I do like that. I do like it because again, like you can do that really really well if you build it up. As much as the prequels for Star Wars are complete garbage, you got to see a version of growth with these characters to the eventual betrayal and fighting, which paid off to a certain degree. So it's like, but you need to build that. It can't just be like, I'm evil now because the script needs it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like for whatever you know hatred folks have for the new Star Wars trilogy, like the arc of Kylo Ren. You know, it's got its clunkiness to it, and it's also when you factor in everything else that they tried to do in those films in general. But like even from The Force Awakens, they established that he's conflicted, like off the break. They make it clear that this is a character who, you know, is explicitly telling you, I don't know what side of this conflict I should be on. And then by the end of it, yeah, it does kind of make sense for him to turn good, if not a little predictable. But I kind of see that working a little more so than if you were trying to do something in the next Spider-Man film where you're making Ned Leeds a villain to Peter. Like there are no building blocks in the 2 films that we've seen so far that could lead to that conclusion.
Doc Ock is Tony's intern or something like that.
Oh, it's gonna be some bullshit like that. Like, that's what it was the last time. The fucking every single fucking Spider-Man villain is just someone Tony Stark pissed off. Much like how every single Tony Stark villain is someone he pissed off.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know. Hopefully, what kind of stories are you would you like to see, Alan? What kind of storylines or villains would you like to see?
I'm kind of the same way. I don't because I love Spider-Man, but like not really in the comics. I've never really read a Spider-Man comic. Like I've read a few issues here and there, but my Spider-Man fandom comes from the animated
Fox series.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best one. Everyone says the Spectacular Spider-Man is better. I've never watched it. I'm sure it is.
Oh, it's great.
It's great, but it's not. It's never going to be better to me than the Fox one. And it just went immediately downhill after that, except for Spectacular.
Which had the worst ending of a series, like animated or otherwise, I may have ever seen in my whole life.
Wait, for which one? Fox or Spectacular?
The Fox series. It's like, all right, Spider-Man, let's go find the real Mary Jane. Oh, we're not gonna see that? Oh, well, fuck this. Like it was cute to have the Stan Lee cameo where he visits the parallel Earth where he's a fictional comic book character created by Stan Lee, but that's great fan service. It's not great storytelling when you can't finish the story of like when you finish the story on a major cliffhanger where Spider-Man is, you know, spent the last 2 seasons like, you know, his love of his life got kidnapped, then she came back, then they got married, and then he realized, oh, she's a water clone. Had to have that moment of watching her die, and then doing all of this other stuff, and then the series ends with him on the way to find Mary Jane, but we, the audience, are never going to see that conclusion.
Nope.
Oh, damn, this sounds disappointing as fuck.
Oh, yeah, that show was depressing as fuck. Like the episode where he explains how he gets his fucking like how he makes his web apps, makes his fucking web cartridges is depressing as fuck. Which leads into, as far as stories, I don't really know what kind of stories I would really want to tell. I just want them to be not necessarily age the character up, but be a bit more mature with the stories you are telling. You can tell serious stories. We've seen this in both the movies and in WandaVision. You can tell a serious story, and audiences will like it. But the number one thing, and this is a fucking travesty, they've never done this in these movies. Why has Spider-Man not swung through the city yet? He got that one little thing in the after credit, but like this character is defined by his ability to swing, and he hasn't swung in the MCU. He web zips and had that one moment in Infinity War. But I need a chase sequence of him swinging through the city, either running away or running towards or trying to chase a car. But like it, like yeah, as much as I laugh at Amazing Spider-Man had a web singing sequence to get to the at the end of it for the climax. We've had 2 movies, and all we've had is web zips. That's it.
Yeah, it's just again.
It's like watching a Batman movie and he fucking throws a batarang. Like, are you serious?
Because again, there's a lot of not Spider-Man in this version. It doesn't feel like Spider-Man to me. It's not Spider-Man so far, and I don't know, I'm hoping for this next movie they warp reality and they bring back Andrew Garfield to play 16-year-old. # justice for Andrew, please.
Oh no, they'll literally just do live action Spider-Verse. Like, okay, which one are you? Okay, Toby, you're older, so you're gonna be the disheveled, like homeless Spider-Man, and you're gonna be the one that dies, like because nobody likes you.
Oh man, that means that was.
They're just gonna do it because they're like, hey, Spider-Verse worked. Let's just do an adaptation of that.
Poor Andrew, he got a bad rep for that movie.
That was not his fault.
That's not his fault, man.
Yeah,
he was one of the best things of that movie.
I still stand by Amazing Spider-Man 2 is better than the first one. I get people fighting me that think the first one's a good movie, or at least better than the second one.
Oh, that'll be a different fight. That'll be a different fight.
I don't know how.
But I don't know. I'm interested to see what's gonna happen for this next movie, which. Yeah. Again, it came out so fast. Like it's gonna come out this Christmas. Like, didn't the last movie come out a year ago? Literally a year ago.
It did come out after Endgame, so yeah, about a year.
Yeah, so it's
a little over a year. Like,
no, it's 2019, so it's been almost 2 years. So that's
almost there. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, because there's no Marvel movies this year, so yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. So I don't know. I'm not very optimistic about it. I'm not even excited for it. I'll just be honest.
I couldn't give a dead. At this point, I couldn't give a dead moose's last shit. To quote Jessica Jones. Yeah, like I'm sure I'll end up watching it anyway. But if you're telling me, like, for like that's the other thing where Marvel fans are just always tweeting or expressing their excitement for shit, and I'm just like. Oh, okay. Is this your lives now? Is this the thing?
Well, I mean, again, they're comic book fans from 10 years ago that they're like, no, this character's so intricate and interesting, and yada, yada, yada. It's like, we've had those same arguments where people that don't get it, this is a situation where we don't kind of get it. We could point out the structural flaws because of what we grew up on, but people were doing the same shit to us. So it's like, I get it. It's like at the end, it's like, hey, I wish I liked Spider-Man MCU as much as y'all did.
Yeah,
I don't like that. Hate.
Well, it's always funny, like especially when it looked like they were like Sony and Disney were gonna break their deal, and everyone was talking about how important Spider-Man was going to be for like everything else that they were going to do in the Marvel universe moving forward. And anytime I would ask someone how, no one could answer the question. They would just keep reiterating, but he's going to be important in the other movies that they're doing. I'm like, how? He's going to be important in the other MCU movies. I'm like, how?
Yeah,
I would.
And then they would just stop talking.
Take Tom Holland out of it. Even the character of Spider-Man. The character of Spider-Man has always been either he stands on his own or he's a supporting cast. He's never been a leader. He's never been a leader of anything. And that's one of the things where it's like, why I always liked Spider-Man, because again, you could tell 100 Spider-Man stories and never have to deal with anyone else. But like, he's part of the Avengers. He's the person that's like, hey, Spider-Man, you do this with Deadpool or whoever the fuck we have around. He's not the leader of the Avengers or anything like that.
No.
Yeah, that's like, again, one of the things where I feel like the things like fandom kind of latches onto. I mean, it's the same way when Joss Whedon after the first Avengers, and it's like now he's the architect of the Marvel universe. Now it's the Russo brothers, and now they're off doing their own thing, and at the moment kind of failing at it. But like, it's kind of funny because like all the Russo brothers seem to do now is either produce or direct movies with previous MCU actors. It's like 21 Bridges with Chadwick Boseman, Extraction with Chris Hemsworth.
Extraction was fantastic. I love that movie.
And Extraction was great. That was them just like they were their credit is right as screenwriters on it, and Sam Hargrave, who was one of the stunt people for some of the Marvel films, was the one directing it, and that was like, okay, him being able to, show what he can do as a director. But now, and then 21 Bridges was, I think they were just producers on that one. And that was kind of like a placeholder film. Like if you've ever like seen a big name actor and they have their major roles, and then they have that one film that they do that people that no one's going to talk a lot about when it's coming up. Like, Wesley Snipes did a lot of those films back in the day. Like in between New Jack City and Blade, there was like Boiling Point, Rising Sun, and, Murder in 1600 that were like all of these sort of like serviceable films. They're completely fine, but they're not anyone that like whole swaths of moviegoers go and say, when we talk about like the roles that, made them well known as actors, those aren't the roles people are talking about. That was 21 Bridges for Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah. Nobody's talking about the movie.
Look, at the end of the day, as long as no one's talking shit about it, it's like, it's basic, whatever. There are worse things than having a basic movie on your resume.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And work is work, and he's great in it. But like now we're at like I think now we're at the level where everyone just like credits everything to Kevin Feige. They like if you've ever
the golden child.
Yeah, it's like how people have like the really artistic painting of white Jesus in their house.
Yeah,
that's how they view Kevin Feige now.
Yeah.
Well, hey, he'll fix the Star Wars universe, right?
I don't care about him. That's the thing. I don't care about him fixing the Star Wars universe. Like, if you're picking good people that people are going to acknowledge for their work and say, hey, this individual filmmaker is making a great thing in the Star Wars universe, as opposed to it's all because of Feige. Like, I'm tired of that shit.
He again, especially at the start, he knows how to put the right people in the right places. Clearly, he knows how to hire the right director. So it's like at the end of the day, it's like, is it all Kevin Feige? But he has a certain eye to be like, at least like, look, I can get the right people in the right room to do the right thing. So it's like if he's good at producing and getting the right people, cool. But like, yeah, it's not. It's like it's up to the filmmakers. The Russo brothers helped make Captain America one of the most interesting characters in the MCU. Kevin Feige probably hired them, but like that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, but I mean, like, even like for like all the people that like want to just sort of overlook First Avenger as if like the director of the goddamn Rocketeer didn't direct this great introduction for the character is kind of bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. But people are like, I don't want to remember 8 names. I remember 1.
Yeah.
Russo brothers became so big, you had to remember them.
Yeah. And like so now like the whole franchise at this point it's like, again, there's enough brand loyalty that you could put a nutless monkey at the helm and it wouldn't matter.
Oh, probably, which is what we're gonna have with the new No Way Home movie, or
No Way Home in theaters and Christmas Day. So I don't know. We'll see how the hell this goes. I guess I can bring you guys back for discussing that movie if it worked out.
Fuck yeah, we'll review it here.
If it's shit.
If we can get this guy to watch it, shit, we're gonna drag it to the theater.
Come on, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it.
Yo, we're in Canada. We'll be able to watch it in theater.
just watch it once, at least, just once.
Believe me, there was the point in time where I was like, am I even going to see Far From Home? Like when that came out, I was definitely contemplating not watching that film. And then I was like, fuck, you know what? I'm writing reviews. I'm like, doing all this stuff. I have to cover Far From Home. Fuck.
It is your job. It's your duty. You have to do it.
Yeah.
So we'll come back and we'll talk about No Way Home, spoiler discussion, see how the hell that worked. So stay tuned for that. So thank you guys for being here, talking Spider-Man and all this MCU stuff.
Thank you for having me.
This has been super cool, better than I thought it was gonna be. So this is awesome. This is cool. So I guess to plug you guys stuff, Alan, I know you have there's Dropolis podcast and
yes. So if you follow me on Facebook, I'll most likely be sending a link to again the very YouTube page that this is going to go up to. But yeah, you follow me there and the Metropolis Collective. So if you put Metropolis Collective into Facebook, you will find the location. That's where I do the Illuminati podcast. But I also do another show called The Chat Attack. Spelled exactly how it sounds. That's where I talk a lot about the stuff that we talked about here. Go a little bit. I went more into depth here, but we did do a show. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, where talked a lot more shit. So I'm surprised that this was a scale back. But yeah, go into all sorts of stuff like that. So be sure to follow me on any of those platforms. You can follow me on Twitter at Birdman Allen, all one word, and you can see me focus more on video games when it comes to my Twitter than anything else.
All right, cool. So if you like video games, go follow him out. Mm-hmm. And Kayode, right? Kayode?
Yes.
All right, cool. Or we can people follow you or see your stuff.
Yes, I have my own YouTube channel, which is at Random with Ken K. So, you type that out and then pops up immediately. I also have a podcast called Casting the Net, which is available on Spotify, Buzzsprout, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. If you want to follow me on Twitter, the Casting the Net is CTN Podcast. So that's CTN Podcast. And at Random with Ken K is Randomly Ken K. So you just have to make sure you're putting an underscore between the Ken and K. And that's how you'll find me. And obviously you look those titles up on Facebook, and I've got pages for both the YouTube channel and the podcast. And yeah, I'm usually just talking reckless on a daily basis.
Just talking shit. Which is applicable for here.
Every now and then I try to have legitimate, articulate conversations with people, and then I realize that Facebook and Twitter are not the places to do those things.
No. Good luck.
I mean, it depends on what kind of discussions you want, but
yeah. So it's always great when people invite me on their podcast so we can talk, see each other's faces, and engage in an actual real-time conversation.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for people to talk shit for after this podcast. I'm sure a lot of people will be like, "What the fuck? You shit on Spider-Man, the best."
Oh, I didn't even get to the Iron Spider.
Quickly, just say Iron Spider. Just say something quickly about that.
Okay, under 30 seconds. So the Iron Spider is one of the stupidest things that they ever added to the Spider-Man lore. Some dumbass you know what? Spiders have 8 legs. Let's add 6 of them to the fucking back of the stupid ass fucking suit and give it to Spider-Man for some fucking reason. Why? Because it kind of looks cool. It really fucking doesn't. It takes away everything about it, and it starts the idea of him getting superpower suits by Tony Stark that ruins the fucking character.
They're great.
Yeah, that's so weird. Yeah, you have no idea how mad I was that they introduced that shit in the Homecoming. I'm like, no, don't you dare bring that fucking thing here.
Oh Lord.
Luckily it's out of the way. The suit's not there anymore.
Who knows? Who fucking knows what's gonna happen next week?
Ain't no way home. He'll put 5 more suits just to look cool and get more toys out of it. I cannot wait. So thank you guys for watching, and you know where to follow me. You know where to check my stuff out, and stay tuned because I'm doing I'm in the middle of a little introspective review of the DCEU on the road for the Justice League cut. So next up, I'm talk about Suicide Squad. So that'll be fun.
No, good luck, and it's not as bad as you think it is.
I watched like that. I mean, that was the thing. I watched I watched Man of Steel and Suicide Squad back to back. Like I think on Tuesday, and I always loved Man of Steel, and for like it having been maybe like 3 or 4 years since I watched it, it still holds up very well for me. And I know like a lot of people have their issues with it, and of course with Superman Lois coming out like this week, everyone kind of took to Twitter to be like, this is how Superman should be. Yeah. And I'm like, please, like, get off the man's dick.
Look, I watched the show. It's fantastic.
I don't doubt that, but like a lot of y'all, even like actual comic creators who I won't name because I don't want to be that petty, but I'm like, I need y'all to fall back. Y'all are kind of like turning into the same sanctimonious gatekeepers that, we kind of tried to like rally against for a short period of time until we became them. So like stop being an asshole. Nah. And I think that's the same for anyone who's a Snyder fan who's a dick to people who don't like Snyder films. Because that was the great thing about the Vanity Fair interview where Zack Snyder's like, yeah, like if you're like going after an individual about like in defense of me, I'm not here for that shit. And I think a lot of people like aren't bringing that fact up because a lot of people like to project like how they've experienced like fan bullying from Snyder fans onto him and being like, I'm like, there's only so much he can do about that.
True. I'm so interested in watching the Snyder Cut. It'll be 4 hours long. Fuck it, but I'm interested.
Yeah.
Despite the Jesus imagery have you seen that picture?
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to think about it. The way some of these fans talk about Superman, it's almost as if they liken him to Jesus anyway. So I always find it ironic that people hate the Jesus imagery in his films, but that's how you treat him. You're kind of like approaching this as like, a figure, a religious figure that you have to protect at all costs and make sure that a singular interpretation of him is the standard.
Okay, so Zack Snyder's commenting on society.
I don't know about that, but if he is like, be a bit of a troll about it. I don't care.
We'll see how it goes, and we can talk about the movie as well when it comes out, the Snyder Cut. That'll be interesting to talk about as well. So and I'm also excited to see Army of the Dead. Looks pretty fun.
Yeah, coming anime or whatever.
Yeah,
so I cannot wait for that. So again, thank you guys for watching. Check them out on their stuff. Follow them, please, and thank you guys for being here again.
Anytime.
Love you guys. So I'll do it again. So my name is Sebastián Sierra. Yo seguiré aquí. Hablando